If I was the kind of person that makes reviews based exclusively on first impressions, this would be quite the harsh video. A 2D game where I can't move using the D-pad, linear and boring level design, button smashing combat, a boss that does the same 3 moves over and over again. This looks like the best kind of game Ubisoft could ever release. That is to say, embarrassingly mediocre. But no, I gotta give credit to these guys, cause Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is really good. Come on, Ubisoft, you used to make games I could tear apart for weeks to no end, just give me something here. Well, there is one thing really. The game starts and you're immediately suffocated by a barrage of unpronounceable Persian names, and somehow they expect me to remember half of them. Listen, Ubisoft, I get that you guys are proud of your so-called historical accuracy, but when I'm 3 minutes into the game and I have to read of how Agaputra has forged the legendary sword Balabads for King Mutras in order to defeat the shish kebabs, I'm starting to think these are not names, but rejects from Lovecraft's pantheon of all gods. And they're just as forgettable as this game's soundtrack. Hey, okay. Fine, my therapist told me I need to stop being unnecessarily mean. As I said, after all, this is quite the enticing piece of entertainment, although calling this one Prince of Persia felt as appropriate as calling The Legend of Zelda rather than Link, since for most of the time we're actually going after the actual prince who's being kidnapped. We instead are... let me check my notes... right, Sargon, member of the powerful troop of immortals, before there were hundreds of them and they started wearing BDSM gear when going into battle. When the prince is kidnapped, we follow his trail to the lost city of... Listen, I'm giving up on names, alright? We reach the ancient citadel of Shangri-La, trapped in a curse that makes time move all wacky, along with our brothers-in-arms, Zangief, Nick Fury, and the others, whatever. The map is sufficiently big and very fun to explore, and you can expect all the usual settings. The town, the old-timey library, Amber Heard's sex dungeon, the sewers, etc, etc. Save for a couple of moments, moving through the various areas never felt confusing, a testament to good level design, which you're gonna appreciate when you move through them as fast as humanly possible. The movement was indeed the best part of the whole experience, especially when you unlock the rewind power, which allows for some nifty tricks that made me giggle like a schoolgirl at the premiere of a Twilight movie. Yet the game really keeps its power-ups tied to its chest. It took me about 15 hours just to unlock the sudden double jump. Almost made me think Ubisoft was going to offer to unlock them earlier with microtransactions, but really ended up liking this approach, since it made me appreciate the levels and their structure even more, having to tackle them with very little options at first while making my best efforts to explore every nook and cranny. But this is just irrelevant. There's a grappling hook, okay? Grappling hooks, my one true weakness. Ubisoft, you're playing dirty here. Now I can't criticize your game anymore. Not the platforming, at least. Yet despite all these tools, the game never tries to be excessively complex, and the learning curve is also very well balanced, and save for a few optional challenges that satisfy the sweatiest part of my brain, the developers made sure that this game was accessible to everyone, without the typical handholding you would expect from a game like this. And they did a great job on that. When starting the game, you can customize the difficulty in several ways. There's reduced environmental damage for those who aren't familiar with platformers, or an optional objective marker for those who bought the game based on the name on the cover rather than knowing what a Metroidvania is. And finally, the combat difficulty, affecting both damage output of your enemies and how forgiving the parry window can be. Now, I started the game on the hardest difficulty because I needed to prove to myself that my reflexes aren't going down the toilet, but you might wonder just how tight is a very tight parry window. To answer that, my first hour or so of the game should suffice. It's very tight. Not gonna lie, on Immortal difficulty, this game humbled me every other minute, but rarely got frustrating. It simply demands you to master its combat system, which really ended up being more satisfying than I predicted. Air juggling enemies, surprising them with a pinball move. It works beautifully, it's fun, and sometimes very funny. Come on, you can do that. Yeah, almost there. Where'd he go? So I managed to rise up from getting smashed to a pulp to juggling bosses in the air for 5 minutes like a tetraplegic father would with his baby from the top of the Empire State Building. But if your question is this the Dark Souls of Metroidvanias? No. Well, it's trying to. It's solid, but by the third act it doesn't really know what to add to the formula, while the platforming instead keeps introducing new mechanics. But it helps at least that there is a good variety of enemies. The big bird, the big mantis from Hollow Knight, the big crab, and of course, John Fortnite. As for the story, I guess I would call it competent. It doesn't try to be funny every 5 minutes, and that by today's standards is already one of the highest praises I can give. It doesn't waste your time, and as a result the pacing is not impacted. Although it went by so fast, I think it managed to forget some of its side characters, because I swear there were a few of them that I just didn't see anymore. Also, I'd like to point out that I wouldn't complain if the voice acting didn't have the same amount of enthusiasm of a 7-year-old going to the dentist.
Am I cursed?
I don't know, but don't worry. We'll find the answers.
And you, Traveller, what is your name?
His name is boring as bitch. I also noticed some jank from time to time, with weird collision detections or this boss just deciding he had enough of my pathetic attempts to kill him and stood still forever. So, you're done? Not gonna do anything? Hehe. What you gonna do about that, huh? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? You don't lose any more HP. But nowadays we can't complain about bugs for too long. You never know if by the time your review comes out the devs will have already released an update to fix them and make you look like a moron. Here's one thing they can't hide under the carpet though. As much as I enjoyed it, The Lost Crown doesn't really add anything new. It's a balanced but predictable mixture of every other Metroidvania released in the past 15 years. And maybe yes, it's a bit harsh for me to pile on it for this. Not just because I'd still wholeheartedly recommend it, but because this feels more like a problem with Metroidvanias as a genre, which doesn't seem to know what to do to reinvent itself. But let's not give people the idea that I don't give credit where credit is due though. There is one new thing, and that's the photo mode. Not to be confused with the one you nerds use for your Instagram posts. This is actually useful. Whenever you feel like it, you can just take a screenshot of the game and the picture will be saved in the map to remind you of roadblocks you found in your journey, which is a lifesaver for people like me who have the awful habit of aging and becoming forgetful. In fact, it was such a well-implemented mechanic that I guarantee everyone and their mother will start copying it from here on out. Boy, what crazy times we're living in. Ubisoft having a positive influence on the gaming industry? That's something I haven't seen in years. Since 2003 to be exact.